October was interesting, to say the very least, but I am very excited to talk about these books. So, ooh, lipstick. October. A month that I didn't expect to go down the way that it did, but a month that I appreciate nonetheless. I think October was a month that I was really excited about. It was my birthday month. I felt like so many exciting things were happening. I made so many plans. I had so many videos planned, so many secret videos in the works. I had just so many things that I wanted to make happen in October. And very quickly, all of those started falling apart. But the rest and the replenishment was great, and I am really excited about November. I am obviously filming this kind of late, but in October, although every book was not a 5-star, I think it was a really interesting one, and one that just provided for a lot of commentary on certain books, which is going to be interesting, and I can't wait to make this rundown happen with you guys. Sorry to disrupt today's programming, but I am here to give a massive thank you to the sponsor of today's video, and whom this would not be possible without, and that is Karma. Karma is an all-in-one shopping assistant that automatically helps you save money, time, and shop smarter, which honestly is great because retail therapy can get out of hand very quickly. Literally, Karma has been a lifesaver with examples like Bakuman, which is volume 1 in a manga, and if you guys are into manga, you know that getting a volume 1 in anything, or in general getting some volumes, is super hard. All you have to do is literally click one button and that will add Karma as a Chrome extension to your browser. After that, you can head to your favorite website or your website of choice, click on the Karma button, and start saving items for you to be notified exactly when the item goes on sale, if there's any relevant coupons, or if there's any drop in price. And after that, you're set to go. You can add items to however many lists you want and create these sort of mood boards or lists for shopping ideas. The holidays are coming up, which is also fantastic. Or as you watch certain videos, if you feel like buying a book or two, that is also a nice way to do it. And to top it all off, you can also get cash back in a variety of different retailers, which also provides cash back to a good cause. And beside that, it will also scan the whole wide world of the intrawebs to find coupon codes for you to use in your purchases. So if you want to join me in my journey of saving money and shopping smarter, you can download Karma in the link at my description. So thank you so much to Karma for sponsoring this video, and I'll just let past Mel take it away because she has a lot to say apparently about the books that she read in October. Also, feel free to let me know in the comments what you guys read in October, what you liked, what you disliked, how you felt about your month. Let's just chat in the comment section because I always love seeing what you guys are reading. So let us get into the wrap up, into all the books that I read in the month of October. I am also going to leave out of this video books that I read for, again, secret videos that are going to roll out in November. Very excited for you guys to experience those, to see those. So I am not going to be talking about those in this video, but the ones that I read outside of those will be talked about. We'll be doing all the mini reviews so that you guys can see all my thoughts, and let's get into it. So starting right off with the first book that I finished in the month of October was Paola, Santiago, and the River of Tears. This is a middle grade, and this was one of my Patreon book club picks in a book club that I run with Liv, but this is one that I thoroughly enjoyed. I ended up rating this a 4 out of 5 stars, and in this one we follow obviously Paola Santiago, who is obsessed with all things science, with all things space, and she suddenly finds herself embroiled with this really crazy plot that involves La Llorona, Chupacabras, and all of these different sets of lores and mythos and legends that we in the Latin community grew up with, and she finds it very hard to come to terms with all of these things that she's seeing and all of the things that she's going to have to battle because she has a very logical brain. So her logical brain can't comprehend anything that's magical and anything that's really out of this world, which is ironic because she's very much into outer space. I think it truly shows how much a young teen can be in so much turmoil mentally, and how a person so young can be so flawed because they've barely experienced life and they've kind of lived very sheltered, and that for as much as they'd like their life situation, their life instances to be different, it's not really something that they can choose. And although Paola was a really frustrating character to read about because she was really infuriating and she was really flawed, and there were times where I went, really, Paola? Is that how you treat people? Is that how you treat your friend? Is that how you talk to your mom? Is that really how you go about it? And yes, while that was frustrating, that was also a nice depiction of what it's like to be so young. And with that, I will say I expected more growth out of Paola. I really don't think I saw enough growth throughout this book. This is a series though, so I'm sure we'll see more of her growth and more of her arc as I read more books, but I definitely wanted some sort of realization, some sort of epiphany to come to her and say, this is not the attitude to have, because she really was mean to a lot of people in her life. But truly, the thing that I enjoyed seeing the most in this book was so much Latin culture, from food to how the household really works and all of their familial dynamics, to even the famous chancla. I absolutely loved the appearance of the chancla and how the author integrated that into the story. It was honestly so fun and lighthearted, and I know it's something that kids will love, and I'm sure this is something that Latin kids will appreciate reading about, because when I was younger, and obviously there is a lot of Latin literature out there, but most of it is written for adults, I really wished I would have had something fun like this to read, and something that I could see, you know, my parents and myself reflected in, and all of these legends that scared the hell out of me when I was younger. I will also say the pacing of this book was not the best. Like, I think the beginning was really exciting, and obviously the end, to see how everything panned out, was really great as well, but I think the middle really suffered, and it was a little bit too convoluted, and it was kind of confusing at times, and I was like, what is this trying to do? I also think that some characters that showed up in this book were not the greatest, and so I think that also really hindered my reading experience with this one, but there were also some really great side characters. Paola's best friend, Dante, he was absolutely fantastic, and I love how he stuck by her, even though she was the most horrible person at times to him. I absolutely loved his sense of loyalty, and him and his abuelita were absolutely fantastic in this story. I also really liked the mystery element of this book, because we also have a disappearance that Paola and Dante need to figure out, which is their best friend Emma disappearing and them not really knowing where she's gone. But I had a great time reading this. It was really engaging, and I'm honestly looking forward to the second one. And the next book that I gave a read was Educated by Tara Westover. This is a nonfiction. It is a memoir, and this one didn't really feel fair to give a rating to, because unless it feels like a 5-star to me, I wouldn't otherwise feel really comfortable kind of rating a nonfiction, because how do you judge people's stories like that and really put a rating to it? So that's why this one is marked as a no rating. But this one was also really fascinating. I had never really seen a story quite like this. So we follow Tara's story as she never really sets foot into a classroom up until she's 17 years old. She was born into a survivalist family who lived out in the mountains and who really survived off of canned food, who lived off of farming, and who never truly believed in machinery and modern stuff. They never really went to hospitals or to doctors. Any injuries the kids might have suffered were all treated with herbalism by their mom, who was a healer. And even jobs, it was a really specific situation where they'd work, but all of their money would have to go to their father. They couldn't really keep anything to themselves. And again, school was kind of forbidden. Everything had to be through the church, to whomever their dad deemed as the right person to educate these kids. And they just had to really abide by whatever their dad wanted. And I think truly one of the strongest elements of this book, about this story, and honestly one of the most heartbreaking parts of it as well, was how Tara constantly had to go through these cycles of abuse with her dad, with her brother, and how nobody really was there to help her. How she didn't really know how to get out of them, how she thought it was normal, how she was continuously kind of groomed and really brainwashed into believing that those were the right ideals and that's how the world worked, and that's kind of what she had to settle for, because God willed it that way, because her father willed it that way, because the universe willed it that way. Her mother really just stood by, never really did anything about it, and so she was kind of a facilitator and an enabler to this behavior, and it was really heartbreaking to hear about Tara being in that situation. And then on the flip side of that, there was also this really empowering tone and element to the book, because despite all of those cycles of abuse, and despite everything that she went through on a daily basis, and throughout her first 17 years of life, and even throughout all of the adversities and all of the difficulties that she had to go through as she first entered a regular sort of educational setting, she really just plowed through, and she had so much ambition and conviction, and her story was really about self-preservation and about self-worth and self-love and moving forward despite any sort of imbalance that there was in her life. And I love that even in the darkest of moments in her life, there seemed to be people around her who were willing to help, and how there were people who, despite her neglecting that help and saying no, continuously stuck by her because they wanted to see her get better, and they wanted to see her kind of move forward in life and achieve more and strive for better, and how she truly had that guidance when she really needed it, which was really beautiful. But it was also, again, heartbreaking to see her, even in those moments of light, kind of receding to this sort of mentality of, I can't really accept help and I have to do everything myself, and that's not the way that things are in life, and then I'm in debt with people, and then what will my father say? And even in those moments where she could have sought help out elsewhere, she kind of kept coming back home because it was her head, her only resource. So it was a really complex sort of read to kind of understand all of these people and the situations that they went through. But it truly really broke my heart that she had to live in that environment, and that her brother was truly just absolutely awful. I was listening to the audiobook, and I think the audiobook was also really impactful. I think there were many moments in the book where I was listening and I went, oh shit. Her first few experiences in the classroom were really also heartbreaking, with her really being in this place of ignorance and really not knowing what so many of these historical events or terminologies or even what racism was, and she had to kind of walk herself through that and learn all of that, kind of rewire her brain to these new, more accepting liberal ideas and what she had grown up with. And so I really loved hearing about her growth and hearing about her story. I think where the book didn't necessarily click with me was the prose. I think there were moments in time where the prose was really beautiful, and there were times where the prose kind of took me out of the story. But I think again, it's how can I judge a nonfiction based on its prose when it's really just about the story and the message? So that's why I was so conflicted. I was like, is this a 4-star? But then how again can I rate somebody's story? Because it's not about the story, it's more so about the writing style. So I was really conflicted, and then I just went, no, I'll just give it no rating. Like, it doesn't need to have a rating. People typically don't rate nonfictions as it is. So that's kind of where I fell onto. But this book was definitely phenomenal. I definitely recommend you guys give this a read. The audiobook was also fantastic. So definitely something that I believe is worth a good read. Another nonfiction that I read in the month of October was It's Not About the Burqa, and this was curated by Mariam Khan. This is a set of essays written by different Muslim women, and the whole premise of the book is, when was the last time that you heard a Muslim woman talk without a filter? And the reason why this whole book came about is because Mariam Khan saw this article being written by a man who was not even Muslim, and he had drawn this link, this comparison between the radicalization of Muslim men and the submissiveness of Muslim women. And she was really tired of seeing Muslim women through a male gaze, and not only that, through a male gaze that was not even a part of the culture or even the religion. And she basically compiled a bunch of essays from Muslim women and them retelling their stories and their experiences as part of this community, and all of these different intersections between religion and society and sexuality, and how people make it all about the burqa when it's really not, and there's so much more to Muslim women than just that, and how wearing a hijab and being Muslim doesn't cancel out things that other people experience just because it's kind of been normalized by media. That being Muslim in Western society is often pitched as sort of this dangerous negative thing when it's absolutely not. There are so many beautiful things about the religion and the faith and all of the traditions, and there's just so much more to it than just this one thing that seemingly represents it. And I truly loved these essays. I was listening to the audiobook for this as well, and I remember just tearing up and literally started crying right from the dedication. I want to reread this. I want to annotate it. I want to take it even more in, because as I was reading this, I just kept going, I need a physical, I need a physical, I need a physical, and now I have one, so I can finally go back to this. But overall, it was such a powerful read. I really think the curation of the essays included in here were fantastic. I loved how all of them had kind of these overlapping themes of like love and faith and devotion, but they were also all so uniquely their own. And you can truly see the strength behind these women and everything that they have to put up on a daily basis, and they plow through and they continue to be strong and they continue to empower themselves and the people around them. And it was, again, such an emotional, beautiful read that I definitely encourage you guys to do so. I absolutely loved this, and again, I can't wait to read it again and finally annotate this because I've been waiting for that moment. Say hello to one of my favorite new romances of the year, probably of all time, The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. I absolutely adored this book. This is one that I haven't talked about on my channel, but I have talked about profusely on my Instagram. The amount of people that have messaged me that have picked up this book after I made my post on Instagram has made my heart so warm, and I've just been so happy seeing you guys love this because this is such a fantastic book. This was originally reylo fanfiction, which is not only hilarious but also genius to me, because you know, once you hear the words fanfiction writer, you know that at the very least 6 out of 10 times it's about to be a fucking incredible book. Safe to say this was a 5 out of 5 stars for me. I read this in one sitting, but I started reading this and I couldn't put it down, and I literally finished it in a matter of a few hours. In this book we follow Olive Smith, who is a third-year PhD candidate, and because she is so focused on her career and really achieving all of her goals, she doesn't really have time for love. She doesn't really believe that love is a thing, but her best friend Anne really fucking does, and she finds herself in this situation make her believe that she is in a relationship and very much in love. The person that she finds herself in a relationship with is actually a professor at the university that she is currently carrying out her project, her PhD. And not only is he the grumpy of grumpiest people around, he is also extremely successful and intimidating, but despite all of that, he does agree to carry out Olive Smith's plan because it also very much aligns with a plan that he has to carry out himself, so it's a win-win situation for the both of them. What Ali Hazelwood really achieved with this one was so fantastic, because oftentimes when we have this sort of Rumster sunshine sort of trope when it comes to the two main characters, a lot of the time the love interest most times a male, ends up being an absolute asshole to the main character, and that is not something that I can particularly get behind. And I love that Ali Hazelwood made sure that we knew that yes, he was a grumpster with everybody around him because of his profession, because he kind of has this facade that he's a very stoic sort of professor and he's very tough and he will make sure that everybody gets better because that's truly what he wants to achieve in his time teaching. And so we know that he's a grumpster to those people, but not to her. He is constantly pining after her. It's very clear that he's a softie for her. It's very clear that he's a part of this plan and he is willing to carry it out in whatever way possible. And I just absolutely love the dynamic between them two. I love the fact that Olive was so smart and so ambitious and she had a life of her own. She had an ambition of her own. She had everything going for herself beyond this romance. I just absolutely loved that for the both of them. I love that they both really had their separate lives, their separate goals, their separate professions, absolutely everything, and that they just came together at the right moment, and that again their dynamic was so good and it was so funny and lighthearted and so passionate and the chemistry was there. I really loved the way that Ali Hazelwood constructed these characters and the way that the story progressed. I think it worked extremely well. I also love the fact that this book is written by a STEM woman who understands what STEM is. I definitely do not in any capacity, but I can only imagine how hard that lifestyle is, how arduous the work is, and all of the fears that come with that profession. I think she really conveyed all of those so perfectly in a way that was very understandable for the reader. I can definitely see all of the parallels between Rey and Kylo. I can definitely see the physical descriptions also fitting Daisy and Adam. It just all worked so perfectly. The main character is also named Adam, and I will never be able to say enough good things about this one because I absolutely adored it. Next up, I have one of the best audiobooks that I have ever listened to, and that is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I had never read an Andy Weir before. This was my very first experience. I was honestly super scared because I know there's a bunch of science on these. I've read articles of people interviewing Andy Weir before. He is like a whole science man himself, and he draws all of these inspirations from like black holes and like a bunch of like meta shit that I genuinely do not understand for the life of me. I'll believe him as well. But I was super intimidated by this book, and so I was constantly recommended to get the audiobook. The audiobook was so good, and I did, and I have absolutely no regrets. The audiobook just truly conveyed all of the humor mixed in with the action scenes and all of the serious parts of this book. I think it all worked so perfectly, and I think Andy Weir is truly gifted at making sure that all of these elements are seamlessly woven together, and I think that's really hard to do. I think when you have a really serious sort of plot, sort of a life and death, you know, intergalactic war situation, end of the world situation, it's really hard to kind of balance that out with something a little bit more lighthearted that keeps the reader in, and he really did that flawlessly. I think Ryland as a main character worked so perfectly as a vessel for the story. I truly wholeheartedly believe that the main character gave the story so much charm and so much, you know, sass to it. I think without Ryland, the story definitely would not have been the same. So I absolutely loved our main character, and with that we follow him as he goes on this space mission, except that one day he just wakes up out of nowhere and everybody around him is dead. He doesn't remember his name, he doesn't remember his mission, and all he knows is that he is in a race against time to literally save planet Earth from an extinction level threat. So, you know, nothing really light. I also think the story structure, the progression, like it really worked. I will say the one thing that constantly kept pulling me out of the story was how Ryland kept getting his memories back slowly but surely. I found it very convenient how they all started coming back at the most convenient of moments. A little bit redundant, but that's truly the way that it went. And I was a bit frustrated because I wanted a little bit more intrigue with this book. And while it was very much there at the beginning, mixed in again with that humor and all of the jokes and all of those kind of like frantic manic moments that Ryland had and all of those anxiety ridden moments for him, I found that that intrigue was kind of killed by, again, him remembering all of these things when he really needed to. And there was never truly a moment of high tension of, oh my god, Ryland, can you fucking remember? We're about to all die. It didn't really go like that for me because, again, he kind of just got them when he needed them, which was a little bit frustrating. But I think truly one of the strongest parts of this book was also the mental health rep. I truly enjoyed the depiction of anxiety with Ryland in particular. It was a very kind of manic sort of state of mind where he kind of had this constant struggle and battle in his own brain as to how he was processing this information. And I guess the way that I compared this in the reading vlog that I read this in was that if you've watched Heathers in any sort of capacity, whether the musical or the movie, you'd know that Veronica Sawyer, the main character, is very much like that. She's like, oh my god, that's so funny. Oh my god, that's so funny. That was a lot, but she kind of has these moments of realization that just hit her kind of like full on, and that's exactly what Ryland reminded me of as I was reading. And I absolutely loved the way that Andy Weir went about that. Also, Rock is the only alien that we stand in this household. That was so good. I was not expecting that. I loved the dynamic and the friendship that these two developed against all odds, and how it truly just came down to teamwork and really moving past differences and coming together to truly make this one thing happen and save the world. It was all so fantastic, and it was all something that I kept going as I was reading the book. I was like, is this like astrophase, astrophage, I'm pretty sure. I was like, is this real? Can this happen? Are we gonna die? That's what I kept thinking as I was reading the book, because I genuinely wholeheartedly again believed that this shit was real. And that's how you know you've got a good book. It's good writing. I was truly in this and I was super immersed, and the audiobook really did a great job at keeping the reader hooked. So I truly had fun with this one. I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. I also really, before I move on to the next book, I think what also really worked well with Ryland as a character was the fact that he was not only one thing. He was not only a man in science. He was not only an astronaut. He was also a teacher, and he had a lot of love for his classroom and a lot of love for his kids. And I liked how his life was more than just this one thing, and how you saw so many different facets of him as you read the book and got those flashbacks and saw him on present time. I think that also worked really, really well for this story. So it was a really good book and I definitely recommend it. And the very last book that I read in the month of October was La Sombra del Viento, Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. This was my patron book club pick for the month of October. As you can see, absolutely adored this book. It was a 5 out of 5 star for me, absolutely no doubt. And there were so many elements of this that just worked so perfectly for me, and I just want to read more of Carlos Ruiz Zafón's work. I think his writing is absolutely beautiful. So we follow Daniel, who is our main character, and in a very big time of grief after his mother passes away, his father, kind of to cheer him up, takes him to El Cementerio de los Libros Olvidados, where there are a bunch of unique books that are not really in print anymore. And in there he finds a very unique copy of La Sombra del Viento, The Shadow of the Wind by one Julian Carax. And he takes it home, he reads it, and absolutely adores it. He cherishes it with every fiber of his being, except that soon enough he finds out that there is this one individual seeking out all of Carax's works, burning them and making sure that they are out of print for good. And so then he finds himself in this very sort of perilous situation where he needs to find out exactly why these works are being burned, who's looking for them, and exactly how he can keep them all safe, because he believes that the very last few copies might be in his possession. First of all, the atmosphere in this book was absolutely stunning. I truly found myself being transported to 1945 Barcelona. I felt like I was in the city. I felt like I was with these characters. It really did a fantastic job at painting the picture, at painting the time era. I think the imagery in this book was so well done that it genuinely took me out of reality every time I read this. Also, all of the parallels between all of the characters and their lives were so well drawn. I constantly found myself going, am I tripping, or is this supposed to mirror each other? I found myself in constant awe at how Danny's life resembled Julian's life so much, and how it was so complex. And I guess the way that I looked at it was kind of like this detective board with like the red string where like everything sort of connects. It all felt like that. I love the way that Zafón really wrote this book in a way where it kind of blurs the line between reality and fantasy, because I constantly kept going, what is this? Is this actually the devil? Is this not the devil? Is this a person? What's happening? There were so many things that I was questioning as I was reading this book, and I think it's one of those books that you read and you kind of try and figure out exactly what's happening as you go, so you can kind of play detective. And I love how love really is at the core of this story. I guess where I always come down to with this book is I've read several books, I won't say many because I don't think I've read many, but I've read several books that have libraries and books at the forefront of the story. And then sometimes also we have these side characters that are kind of like the token reader that we are supposed to relate to because we're also readers, and oh my god, it's so good. But this, I think Carlos Ruiz Zafón truly understands the power of words in this book and truly understands what books are to people, how powerful they are, how they can change lives and shape lives and really do just about anything because they're magical. And I love how books are at the forefront of the story, and how books are friends, and how books are mirrors. And there's this one quote in the book that I found so beautiful, and it was really, books are a mirror of who you are. You can only see what you already have in yourself when you're reading, or something amongst those lines. There were so many beautiful moments and quotes with this one. It was also a really sad, heartbreaking story. Fermin was also my absolute favorite character in this one. He was so hilarious and nonsensical, and I loved his friendship with Danny. Again, how loyal he was. This man went through it. All of them went through it, but Fermin really stuck around despite being beat and battered, and I absolutely loved that. I loved how they pushed through through. The flashback portions of this book were also really fascinating. I really just saw kind of everything play out in my head like a movie. For some reason, Spanish people are really gifted at writing like mysteries and thrillers, so this really truly worked for me. I truly don't have anything negative to say about this book. Perhaps the only thing might be that the flashback portions were a little bit too long, so some of them got a bit boring. There's one in particular that was like 40 pages long and I really didn't care for most of it. But beside that, everything else about this book truly worked for me. Can't wait to keep reading the series, because even though I suck at reading series, I definitely want to continue, especially knowing that each book features like a different character and a different storyline. I think that's gonna be really, really cool. And that is it for today, friends. I hope you guys enjoyed this October wrap-up moment. I've been editing the video and it's been a journey to edit this. When I tell you guys I talk so much about these books, I had to cut down a bunch of video. I genuinely hope these reviews made sense and that you guys enjoyed them. If you did, don't forget to smash that like button down below, because it's always a great time over on the channel. And let me know also down below if you've read any of these books, if you've enjoyed them, what you guys read in the month of October, and maybe what you're currently reading, because I am a little bit nosy and I love seeing what you guys are currently reading. If you reached the end of the video, also let's leave some book emojis down below. A good old classic, but I can't think of anything else. Don't forget to subscribe down below if you haven't done so already. I am constantly uploading videos that I am sure you won't want to miss. And if you want to support the channel further, I do have a Patreon. It's always a fun time over there. We have book clubs, buddy reads, a Discord server, exclusive live shows and videos, and just about anything that you can possibly imagine we do over there. That is always linked down below alongside all of my social medias. And before I log off once more, I need to thank Karma for sponsoring today's video. Don't forget that you can download it over at the link on my description and start your shopping journey, but a little bit smarter and saving some coin, which is always fantastic. And yes, I love you guys so much, and I shall see you on the next one. Bye guys.